Welcome back to Hopeful Horizon, the place where we share stories that inspire, challenge, and leave you thinking long after the final moments. Today, we bring you a gripping tale of courage, strategy, and justice. It begins with a chance encounter at a quiet gas station where a wealthy CEO crosses paths with a ruthless biker gang. What starts as a simple confrontation quickly escalates into a high-stakes battle of wits, perseverance, and calculated revenge. Stay tuned as we unravel a story of resilience, tactical brilliance, and a fight to reclaim peace in a town gripped by fear. If you enjoy stories packed with unexpected twists, powerful moments, and the triumph of good over evil, make sure to leave a comment below and tell us where you're listening from. Don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another inspiring story from Hopeful Horizon. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the quiet outskirts of Mill Creek. The air was still, save for the occasional rustle of leaves, as a gentle breeze swept through. At a modest gas station just off the main highway, the hum of a vintage 1967 Mustang Shelby GT500 broke the serene atmosphere. The car, gleaming in its deep blue finish, pulled into the station. Its driver, James Harlow, stepped out with the precision and grace of someone who lived by a disciplined code. Dressed in a tailored suit, the 40-something CEO exuded quiet confidence. His polished shoes clicked against the concrete as he moved to the pump. Despite his formal attire, his chiseled features and piercing eyes hinted at a life that had seen its share of battles. As the pump clicked into place, James took a deep breath, savoring the simplicity of the moment. The serenity didn't last. The rumble of engines announced the arrival of trouble. A biker gang, notorious in the region for their intimidation tactics, rolled into the station. They were a motley crew of leather-clad men and women, their bikes adorned with skull motifs and rusted chains. Leading the pack was Snake, a wiry man with a serpent tattoo coiling up his neck and an ever-present sneer. Snake's sharp eyes locked onto James as the gang dismounted, their boots crunching on the gravel. "Look at this one," Snake sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "Suit and tie at a gas station. What are you trying to prove, moneybags?" James glanced at him briefly, then returned his focus to the pump. He was no stranger to men like Snake. Loud, brash, and dangerous only when underestimated. Snake didn't take kindly to being ignored. He strode closer, flanked by two of his men, Bear and Trix. "Hey, I'm talking to you," he barked. James finished filling his tank and calmly replaced the nozzle. "I'm just passing through, no trouble here," he said, his voice measured and calm. Snake laughed, a high-pitched cackle that seemed to ripple through the gang. "No trouble, huh? Well, we're in the mood for some fun." As if on cue, Bear produced a knife and slashed the rear tire of James' car. The hiss of escaping air filled the tense silence. James took a step forward, his gaze never leaving Snake. "That's enough. Let's not make this worse for anyone." Trix shoved James hard, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. The gang erupted in laughter as Snake loomed over him. "You don't tell me what's enough," Snake spat. "Guys like you think you can stroll through the world like you own it. Newsflash, you don't own this." James slowly got to his feet, brushing dirt from his suit. He scanned the gang, noting every detail. Snake's serpent tattoo, Bear's scarred knuckles, the license plates on their bikes, and even the chipped paint on Trix's helmet. His mind worked methodically, cataloging everything with the precision of a soldier. Without another word, James turned and began walking away. "Where do you think you're going?" Snake shouted. James didn't respond. His calm retreat seemed to unsettle the gang. Snake shouted after him again, but James kept moving, his steps steady and deliberate. Behind him, Snake yelled to his crew, "Let him go! He's not worth the effort." But James knew better. The encounter wasn't over. It was just beginning. The soft hum of a private jet accompanied James's voice as he spoke into his phone, his tone as measured as ever. "No, I don't need a car sent. I'll take care of it myself. Just have the team ready for a briefing in 2 hours." Seated in the cabin of his jet, James leaned back in his chair, his suit jacket folded neatly beside him. He stared out at the clouds, his mind replaying the encounter at the gas station. It wasn't anger that fueled him, it was resolve. As the plane touched down near his corporate headquarters, James stepped off, greeted by his assistant Claire, a sharp-witted woman in her early 30s who had been with him through thick and thin. "What happened?" she asked, her eyes scanning his face for clues. "Just a misunderstanding," James replied, his calm demeanor intact. "But it's one we need to address." Claire nodded, knowing better than to press for details. Together they walked into the sleek building that housed Onyx Security, the global firm James had built from the ground up. The company was renowned for its cutting-edge surveillance technology and its elite team of operatives, many of whom were ex-military like James. In the conference room, a group of men and women awaited him. Each one wore the look of seasoned professionals, their sharp eyes and disciplined postures a testament to their backgrounds. James addressed them without preamble. "We have a situation. A biker gang operating out of Mill Creek, small time in scope, but growing bolder. They've been harassing locals, robbing businesses, and escalating to violence. They crossed my path yesterday. I want them stopped." The team exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of curiosity and determination. One of them, a burly man named Darius, spoke up. "What's the play, boss?" James activated a screen, displaying images of the gang's bikes, their tattoos, and a map of their known routes. "We gather intel. Surveillance first, drones, traffic cameras, and informants. I want to know their routines, their hideouts, and their connections. No direct confrontation yet." As he spoke, flashes of his past came to mind. Nights spent behind enemy lines, missions that required patience and precision. This wasn't just business for James. It was a reminder of who he used to be. While the team got to work, James retreated to his office, where Claire awaited with a steaming cup of coffee. "Is this about what happened at the gas station?" she asked gently. James nodded. "They think they can terrorize anyone without consequences. I'm going to show them they're wrong." Claire studied him for a moment, then handed him a file. "These are the preliminary reports. Snake's real name is Roger Blake, ex-con with a history of assault and extortion. The others are just as bad." James skimmed the file, his expression unreadable. "Good work. Let's keep digging." Meanwhile, the gang continued their reign of terror, oblivious to the web closing in around them. They hit a liquor store that evening, smashing windows and roughing up the owner before speeding off into the night. James watched the footage in his office, his jaw tightening. He made a decision then. It was time to send a message. "Darius," he said, calling his lead operative, "prepare the team. We're going to pay Snake a visit." The gang's hideout was a forgotten warehouse on the outskirts of Mill Creek, its once bright paint now faded and peeling. Rusted metal signs hung askew, creaking softly in the breeze. Inside, Snake lounged on a battered couch, a cigarette dangling from his lips. Around him, the gang reveled in their spoils, stolen liquor, cash, and trinkets from their latest string of robberies. Bear leaned against the wall, sharpening his knife. "What's the plan, boss? Hit the liquor store again? That old man won't dare call the cops this time." Snake smirked. "Nah, we need to go bigger. Let these small-town nobodies know who's in charge." As Snake began outlining his grand vision of chaos, none of them noticed the small drone hovering just outside the broken window. Its camera captured every detail of the hideout, the faces, the bikes, the layout. Miles away, James Harlow watched the live feed on a tablet. His expression was calm, but his eyes were calculating. "They're sloppy," he murmured to Darius, who stood beside him. "That's their weakness." Darius nodded. "What's the move?" James set the tablet down. "We send a message, something they won't forget." That night, James's team went to work. They moved like shadows, their training evident in every precise step. Wearing black tactical gear, they approached the warehouse under the cover of darkness. The first objective was the bikes. Each one was carefully disabled, engine wires cut, tires deflated, and fuel tanks drained. Next, the power was cut. The warehouse plunged into darkness, eliciting confused shouts from the gang inside. Snake cursed loudly. "What the hell's going on? Bear, check the breaker!" Bear grabbed a flashlight and stormed outside, but he froze when he saw the state of the bikes. "Boss, Someone's been messing with our rides. Snake and the others rushed out, their flashlights sweeping over the damage. Panic set in as they realized their escape routes were gone. On the warehouse door, a note was taped. Written in bold black letters, it read, "You've picked the wrong fight." Snake ripped the note off the door, crumpling it in his fist. "This is a joke, right? Some punk trying to mess with us?" Trix, her voice shaky, said, "What if it's that guy from the gas station?" Snake laughed, but it was forced. "Him? You think that suit-wearing pretty boy did this? Please? It's probably those lowlifes from Ridgewood trying to start something." Inside the darkened warehouse, James and Darius observed from a concealed vantage point, listening to every word. "They're scared," Darius whispered. "Not enough," James replied, his voice steady. As Snake rallied his gang, swearing revenge against their perceived rivals, James' team quietly withdrew. For now, their job was done. The next morning, Snake tried to get the bikes repaired, but the damage was extensive. Frustrated, he gathered the gang for a meeting. "All right, listen up," he barked. "Whoever did this is going to pay. We're hitting Ridgewood tonight. Burn their turf to the ground if we have to." Unbeknownst to Snake, James was already 2 steps ahead. Using surveillance footage and intercepted communications, he anticipated the gang's every move. He wasn't ready to confront them directly. Not yet. First, he needed to dismantle their confidence. The Iron Horse Bar was the gang's unofficial headquarters, a dingy dive filled with cigarette smoke, cheap beer, and a jukebox stuck on a loop of classic rock. On any given night, it was packed with bikers and their hangers-on, but tonight was different. When Snake and his gang stormed in, they found the place eerily empty. The lights were dim, and the air carried an unsettling stillness. "Where is everybody?" Trix muttered, her hand resting on the knife at her belt. Snake strode to the bar, slamming his fist on the counter. "Hey, somebody better tell me what the hell's going on." From the shadows, Darius stepped forward. He was dressed in plain clothes, but his posture and presence made it clear he wasn't an ordinary patron. "Evening," Darius said, his voice calm but firm. Snake's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" "Just someone delivering a message," Darius replied. The gang spread out, their hands hovering near their weapons. Tension crackled in the air. "Message from who?" Snake demanded. Before Darius could answer, a phone behind the bar rang. The shrill sound echoed in the silence, making everyone flinch. Darius gestured to the phone. "Why don't you answer it?" Snake hesitated, then grabbed the receiver. "Who is this?" James' voice came through, cool and measured. "Snake, I trust you're enjoying the hospitality." Snake's face darkened. You think you can mess with us and get away with it?" James didn't rise to the bait. "I think you've made a habit of messing with people who can't fight back. I'm here to show you what happens when you pick on the wrong man." "Big talk for someone who's too scared to face me," Snake sneered. "Oh, I'm not scared," James replied. "I just prefer strategy over brute force. Speaking of which, you might want to check your phones." As Snake hung up, the gang members' phones buzzed with notifications. Confused, they pulled them out, only to find incriminating photos and videos of their past crimes posted online. Their personal information, addresses, aliases, and even embarrassing details about their lives was exposed for the world to see. "What the hell is this?" Bear growled, scrolling through his phone. Snake's face turned red with rage. "Shut it down! Delete everything!" "It's too late," Darius said, leaning casually against the bar. "The authorities already have copies. And just so you know, your funding sources are drying up too. Funny thing about stolen goods, they tend to disappear when the people storing them get tipped off." Snake lunged at Darius, but before he could reach him, the lights flickered on, revealing James standing at the entrance. "Enough," James said, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The gang froze, their gazes shifting between James and Darius. "You," Snake spat. "You think you're some kind of hero?" James walked forward, his steps measured. "I'm not a hero, Snake. I'm just someone who doesn't tolerate bullies." Snake sneered, but the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. He tried to rally his bravado. "You don't scare me." "I don't need to scare you," James said. "I just need you to understand that your days of terrorizing this town are over. You can run, but you can't hide. Not from me." Snake, desperate to regain control, shouted, "Let's get him!" But none of the gang moved. James's calm confidence, combined with the systematic dismantling of their operations, had sown doubt and fear. "Smart choice," James said, turning to leave. "This is your last warning. Walk away while you still can." As he exited the bar, James knew the gang wouldn't heed his warning. But that was fine. He wasn't done with them yet. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the dense woods surrounding the secluded cabin. James Harlow sat on the porch steps, sipping a cup of black coffee, his expression serene despite the impending storm he knew was coming. Behind him, the cabin appeared rustic, but every detail, reinforced windows, concealed cameras, and a hidden panic room, had been meticulously planned. Inside, Darius checked the monitors. "They're moving. 4 bikes heading up the trail. They'll be here within 20 minutes. James nodded. "Everything in place?" "Every last detail," Darius confirmed. "Tripwires, flashbangs, and the perimeter alerts are all active. You sure about this? We could call it in now." James stood, stretching his shoulders. "Not yet. I want them to understand what they've walked into before they're handed over." Snake led the gang up the narrow dirt road, his face twisted in rage. The earlier humiliation had pushed him over the edge. He wasn't just out for revenge. He wanted to make an example of James. "You see him, you take him out." Snake barked over the roar of the bikes. "I don't care how clean this guy looks. He's messing with the wrong crew." Bear, riding close behind, grunted his agreement. But as they neared the cabin, the gang slowed. Something about the silence of the woods felt unnatural. "Why is it so quiet?" Trix muttered, her eyes scanning the tree line. "Shut up," Snake snapped. "He's just one guy." As they pulled into the clearing, they saw the cabin illuminated by the faint glow of a porch light. James' car was parked to the side, its polished surface reflecting the moonlight. "He's here," Snake growled, pulling a crowbar from his bike. "Let's end this." But as they dismounted, the first trap triggered. A loud pop echoed through the clearing as a hidden tripwire set off a series of flashbangs. The gang stumbled, clutching their ears and shielding their eyes from the blinding light. Snake roared in frustration. "Spread out! Find him!" As they fanned out, the traps became more sophisticated. A hidden snare pulled one biker off his feet, leaving him dangling upside down from a tree. Another triggered a smoke grenade, filling the air with thick, choking plumes. "Who does this guy think he is?" Bear bellowed, coughing as he stumbled through the smoke. James watched from a concealed vantage point, his movements silent and deliberate. He wasn't interested in killing them. This was about dismantling their confidence and showing them the limits of their bravado. One by one, he incapacitated the gang. Trix swung wildly with a chain, but James ducked and delivered a swift strike to her wrist, disarming her. She hit the ground with a grunt, clutching her arm. Bear charged him next, his bulk making him a formidable opponent. But James sidestepped, using Bear's momentum to send him crashing into a tree. A quick strike to the back of the knee left Bear immobilized. Finally, only Snake remained. Snake burst into the cabin, crowbar in hand. "Come out and fight me, you coward!" James stepped out from the shadows, unarmed. "You sure about this, Snake? You don't look so confident now." Snake snarled, lunging at James with a wild swing. James sidestepped, his movements precise and fluid. He didn't counterattack right away. He wanted Snake to feel the futility of his rage. "You think you're better than me?" Snake hissed, swinging again. James blocked the strike with his forearm, then retaliated with a punch to Snake's ribs. The gang leader staggered, but he didn't back down. The fight was brutal, a clash of raw strength versus refined skill. Snake fought dirty, throwing wild punches and attempting to grapple James. But James's training gave him the upper hand. He anticipated every move, delivering calculated blows that wore Snake down. Finally, James caught Snake's arm mid-swing and twisted it, forcing the crowbar to drop. With a powerful kick to the chest, Snake was sent sprawling onto the floor. James stood over him, breathing heavily but controlled. "It's over." Snake spat at his feet, but he didn't have the strength to get up. The authorities arrived just as dawn broke, the blue and red lights of their vehicles casting eerie shadows through the trees. Sheriff Logan, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped out of his cruiser. Harlow, he greeted, tipping his hat. You've been busy. James handed over a USB drive. Everything you need is on here. Locations of stolen goods, footage of their crimes, and a full list of aliases and associates. Logan raised an eyebrow. You're thorough. I'll give you that. As the deputies rounded up the gang, Snake glared at James. This ain't over. You hear me? You'll pay for this. James met his gaze, unflinching. No, Snake, you're done. Over the next week, the fallout was swift. The gang's criminal network unraveled as law enforcement used the evidence James provided to arrest their associates. Businesses they'd terrorized began to rebuild, no longer living in fear. James didn't stop there. He partnered with local leaders to fund community programs, young centers, job training initiatives, and grants for small businesses. He wanted to ensure the town had the tools to thrive long after the gang was gone. At a town meeting, the mayor publicly thanked James. You've given this town a second chance, Mr. Harlow. We owe you a great deal. James shook his head. I just did what needed to be done. The real work starts now, with all of you. As the sun set on another day, James stood by his repaired vintage car, the engine purring softly. Darius approached, holding out a phone. It's the board, Darius said. They want to know when you'll be back. James took the phone, glancing out at the horizon. Tell them I'll be in tomorrow. And Darius? Yeah? Have them prep the files on that corporate merger. Something tells me it's not as clean as it looks. Darius smirked. You never stop, do you? James climbed into the car, giving a faint smile. Stopping's never been my style. With that, he drove off, the hum of the engine fading into the distance, leaving behind a town forever changed by his actions. Thank you for joining us on this intense journey of courage, justice, and redemption. James's story reminds us that sometimes the greatest battles are won not through brute force, but with intelligence, strategy, and a commitment to doing what's right. If you've been inspired by this tale, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay connected to more stories that inspire, challenge, and uplift. Until next time, remember to stay hopeful, stay strong, and always believe in the power of doing what's right.